Happy holidays, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Media Row podcast. Happy to have you guys here on this Monday. We have a jam-packed show for you here as we were all over the place this weekend. So first and foremost, thank you for tuning in. Make sure to click that subscribe button. Make sure to like, comment, rate wherever you are viewing or getting this podcast, as well as follow us all over social media at Media Row Pod. You can catch us on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. Twitter is where we spend most of our time interacting with the listener, and you missed a lot if you weren't following us, because like I said, we were fortunate enough to be all over the place this weekend. We talked with listeners about the college football playoffs. We were live at the Knapp Center Sunday to cover the Drake women's game, interviewed Coach Pohlman. You'll hear a little bit from her in today's show. We gave our thoughts on an emotional and frustrating and exciting Drake victory against Evansville. We'll talk about that as well. And then we were fortunate enough to be at the Casey Center to cover the Iowa Hawkeyes, and you'll hear from Coach McCollum as we were able to interview him as well. But you could have caught all of that on Twitter, so just make sure you're following from here on out at Media Row Pod. And then last thing I need you guys to do is go support our sponsor in Kelly's Little Nipper at 1701 East Grand Avenue in Des Moines. Wonderful people with also great food and great drinks. Love, love, love Kelly's Little Nipper, and you will too. So check them out at 1701 East Grand Avenue in Des Moines, proud sponsor of the Media Row podcast. So like I've said, busy show, jam-packed show, diverse show, probably one of the most diverse shows we've had in a long time. But we are going to recap both Drake games that we were at, as well as spend some time talking about the Iowa Hawkeye and Bucknell game and catching up with Coach McCollum. And then finishing up today, as you'll want to make sure you're here for the full show, ending by fixing the college football playoffs. So make sure you're tuned in for the entirety of today's show, because we're going to have some ideas on the college football playoffs. And make sure to comment on YouTube, social media, wherever you're able to comment on today's show. I'm interested in hearing your guys' ideas about the college football playoffs. Do you think it should be fixed? Are you fine with what it's doing right now? So I'm excited to hear from you guys as well. But let's jump in to today's show, starting with the game that just wrapped up. As you guys know, we pre-record this show on Sundays so that we can get it out bright and early Monday morning. So you have all day long to listen to the show. And while we were live in the Knapp Center for the Drake women's game, we're going to cover that one in a little bit, because we just got done watching the Drake Evansville game, and there's a lot going on in my head right now. And I'm sure a lot of Drake fans are feeling the same way. Drake wins on the road against Evansville by 66-65. It is Coach Henderson's first victory in the Valley. It is Drake's 14th straight victory against the Purple Aces. But a victory that leaves you feeling a lot of different emotions. There was controversy beforehand. Jalen Quinn did not play at all in the first half. Played in the second half, was a big reason Drake was able to come out with the victory, because of his defensive effort guarding the perimeter in that second half. But there was a lot of conspiracy and a lot of controversy surrounding Coach Henderson's decision to not play him, because it was announced, we announced it on Twitter too, that it was a coach decision. No injury involved. It was just Henderson's decision that he would not play at all in the first half. And so we're not going to play the controversy game. You can read about it on social media. We are fortunate enough to have Coach Henderson coming on the show, which will be released tomorrow. I know we usually release our shows on Wednesday, but with the holidays, we're going to release our interview with Coach Henderson tomorrow, a special one-on-one, and you can bet we're going to ask him about it, because there is a lot of confusion around that is Jalen Quinn, not only your leader of this team, but your leading scorer and the leading scorer in the Valley. And with how Drake struggled in that first half, it just made the controversy build even more. So you had a lot of weird things in this game. And I think the best way to put this victory for Drake is it showcased greatly the good, the bad, and the ugly that has surrounded this Bulldog team all non-conference for about a month. So we're going to start with the good. We're usually more positive on this show. Don't worry, I have a lot of negatives and a lot of concerns that we'll get to. It's not all going to be positive. I know, a lot of Drake fans were very negative after the Murray State loss. I get it. I still saw a lot of improvement. I still believe each and every one of us, if we were told beforehand Thursday night that Drake was going to win the rebound battle, win the points in the paint, 4 guys were going to score in double figures, all of us would have thought Drake was going to win. And maybe if you didn't think they were going to win, you would be very happy with hearing that. You would think that game was going to be very close. And I thought it was close, and Murray State's a very good team. But today's show, we don't have as much good as we did in a loss against Murray State, and Drake won this game. So to start with the good, this is a 14th straight victory against Evansville. That's impressive against a conference opponent. And probably in the most drastic terms, this was a tale of two halves. Drake in the first half couldn't buy a shot. And we'll get into those first half struggles in the bad and ugly segment. But the good is the way they were able to respond and adjust at halftime. For the first 10 minutes of the second half, Drake appeared to be a completely different team and was able to just put Evansville on their heels going into that second half, where they started 3 of 5. They started out of the gates opening with a 6-0 run, got out to a 15-point lead, shot 57% from the field in the second half. And the offensive success was greatly due to Jashawn Thomas, who is a guy that we have seen be able to create his own shots, and we've seen his capabilities on that side of the ball from day one. He led the team in scoring, I believe, in game 1 against Northern Arizona, and he's had 20-point performances before. He scores 18 tonight against Evansville, but in my opinion, this was his best performance and most poised performance. My concerns that I've had throughout the non-con and throughout this month of Jashawn Thomas, and it floods a little into Exact's play as well, is sometimes those guys, they're great at getting to the basket, but at times they struggle to kick out. Sometimes they panic when the defense collapses on them, and sometimes they try to force a shot that isn't there. That was the biggest change and progression I saw from Jashawn Thomas tonight against Evansville was, and Admire said it perfectly on my drive back from the Knapp Center, is that he wasn't forcing anything. He was letting the game come to him. And that's the best way to put it, was he was calm, cool, collected, all those cliches, was poised, let the game come to him, and you could see the efficiency follow because of that. He scored 9 points in both halves. He didn't force any shots, took good shots. Not all of them fell, but they were all good shots. He didn't take a single three where I'm like, just trying to force something. Thought he played really good and was a main reason Drake was able to come out of that second half with such force. And think of everything that has gone through his short little stint here with the Bulldogs in this month. Is he's a guy that started at the start of the year, and then he was benched, coming off of the bench as one of the 6 or 7 reserves. Then he gets put in the starting position again, but there's all that controversy and probably some in-team drama with, Jalen Quinn being him taking Quinn's spot and Quinn sitting until the second half. but really thought he played a great game, and is one of the main reasons offensively in that second half Drake looked as good as they did for the most part. Another player that I want to shine some light on real quick, just because we talk about Quinn a lot. We talk about, we've brought up Appelhans breaking records, Jashawn Thomas, exact. You hear a lot of those guys, Federico, those names get brought up quite a bit. A guy that just doesn't get enough credit, and I think has shown some great performances here in the last few weeks, is the true freshman Griffin Goodberry. We really spent some time talking about him over Thanksgiving, the way he performed against LSU and Georgia Tech. Another really strong performance tonight where he puts up 9 points while facing Connor Turnbull for Evansville, who leads the Valley in most blocked shots. Puts up an efficient 9 points, didn't force a lot of shots, but he has really played up to some really tough opponents, LSU, Georgia Tech, and against one of the best defenders in the conference. I thought he was incredible, and it just gets me excited to see him grow, as you expect him to get so much better, not only throughout the next few months this season, but really next year as well. And then to finish up the good section of this Drake game, a win is a win. But that leads us into the bad and ugly, because the sentence, Drake escapes Evansville, is not at all what I thought I'd be saying on today's show. Not at all. And this is going to be one of those things where you say, don't take offense, and then kind of say something pretty offensive. I don't mean to be disrespectful. I think what Evansville as an athletic department and a program is having to go through is really difficult. I mean, Evansville has been kind of bottom tier Valley team for a long time. I really respect what they're doing, and they played Drake to the very last second. They played really good. That being said, it's Evansville. This is not a team Drake should be sweating out till the last second. I understand winning in conference play is tough. Winning on the road is very tough. This is Evansville we're talking about now. And so a win is a win, is a good, but also it fits into that ugly section where you're like, you're wanting to see the consistency, and the inconsistencies over this last month by this Drake team is holding them back, because I really think this Drake team has struggled with playing up to opponents like the way they did against Georgia Tech and against LSU, but they've struggled with playing down against opponents as well. SIUE and Robert Morris, and especially Evansville today. I thought they played down to Evansville. And that, again, you credit Evansville for forcing Drake to play until the end of the game. They could have given up around that 15-point deficit, but they were able to charge back with a 9-0 run of their own. And so those are the concerns that we have seen for over a month now that just haven't been able to be fixed. We're seeing the inconsistencies, and we're seeing the continuation of just the identity of this team not being there yet through 12, 13 games, especially on the defensive end. I think the offense has figured something out. I think there's still a lot of question marks, but when I talk about identity issues with this Drake team, I'm really talking about the defensive side of the ball. That first half was really, really tough to watch on the defensive end, because there's miscommunications, lack of fighting through screens. You're leaving guys open in the corners because of miscues and just bad spacing for this Drake team. And so that first half defensively was rough. Along with offense, they looked so out of sync offensively as well. Evansville appeared to be the tougher and just more developed team, more united team than Drake was in that first half. Drake shot 3 of 15 from the field. And then they almost blow a 15-point lead And in that final minute, here's the thing. If you're going to have issues offensively, I would rather have you miss open threes, turn over the ball, than miss free throws. Missing free throws, I'm sure the coaching staff, this team is going to be shooting 1,000 free throws. We'll ask Henderson tomorrow. Because I asked when Drake last year went through a little rut where they couldn't hit a free throw, I asked McCollum. He wasn't too concerned about it. So we'll see if maybe that's just a fan thing. Maybe we overthink free throws. But tonight, I think really helps the fan cause when you're sitting there pulling hair out because of going 0 for 3 at the free throw line in the final minute. This game, maybe, you don't walk out with that 15-point easy victory you're hoping for when they get out to a 15-point lead. But at least you don't have to sweat it to the final second and hold your breath as Turnbull fires up a 75-foot jump shot. But they shot a season low 45.5% from the free throw line, 5 of 11. And you can't expect to win many games. You got lucky that Evansville had one of the worst game management possessions I've seen in a long time, where there was 23 seconds left when I think it was Thomas missed the front end of that third and final 1-and-1. And Evansville is dribbling out the clock as I expected, where you're like, all right, the game is won or lost on this possession. Drake doesn't get the ball back. And Evansville's dribbling around. They're getting it to Turnbull at the free throw line. They're just trying to get that spacing, trying to find that open shot, the best shot they can with the clock winding down. And they settle for a 35-foot three-pointer with like 8 seconds left. Where even the announcers were sitting there going, whoa, what are we doing here? And Drake gets lucky because of that inexperience that Evansville had, because Evansville's going through what Drake is going through, where they literally lost 5+ players to the transfer portal a year ago. So they're still trying to build a connection as well. And so Drake looks out and survives a nail biter in Evansville in a game that, again, I think just really showcased the good. And man, if this Drake team can play a full 40 like they did for 10 minutes in the second half, they can really compete with anyone. That is the ceiling of play we've been looking for. Great inside-out play. Great defensive plays, just physical defense. That was Henderson's identity that he wanted to establish defensively. He said that in his opening press conference, that this team, more than offense, he wanted to focus defensively on being the best defensive team in the conference. And they showcased that for about 10 minutes against Evansville, but really struggled to find those consistencies. And that's the bad and ugly, where for about a month now, they've struggled with identity issues and they've struggled with inconsistencies. But all that being said, it does still feel good to get that victory. It would have been a darker and more bleak discussion if Drake would have lost that game. They end a losing streak, and now they can take a few days off to just kind of shake off whatever we just saw against Evansville, put it in the rearview mirror, and get ready for what is going to be a battle, a really tough game, Monday, December 29th, 8 o'clock at the Knapp Center, as they take on Illinois State, a team that I picked to actually win the Missouri Valley Conference, 10-3, 2-0 in the conference right now. They have the best big man in the game in Chase Walker, so much offensive talent returning, and a really strong coach as well. So hopefully they can shake off whatever just happened against Evansville. And one last thing about this game, and then we'll move on. We've seen Drake teams struggle against teams that they should have walked by. You know, DeVries, the year Drake won the Missouri Valley Conference tournament for the first time since 2008, That DeVries team went on a 2-game losing streak against Southern Illinois and Missouri State, where they only put up like 45 points. Those were some dark games to sit through. And I think as a Drake fan, you got to try to remember those, as no matter how hard it was to watch that game on Sunday, and realize Drake won this game. That's a win. A win is a win. Let's move on and get prepared for what is going to be an absolute battle and what would be a huge win at home against Illinois State on Monday the 29th. It's a tough one for the men. They get a win, though, in a tough one, while the women, they fall to Minnesota 68-43 in a game in the first half where it looked like this Drake team was actually going to make Minnesota work for it. They were going to battle till the end. But then just that Minnesota team, that size, Drake just couldn't compete. I mean, they were dominant in the paint and got so many second chance opportunities with battling for the glass. Minnesota out-rebounds Drake 40-32, which isn't as drastic as honestly it felt like. But then also in the paint, 40-16. That was the game decider right there. And when Minnesota can really do whatever they want offensively, that relaxes them on the defensive end, where they just got so physical with Drake. And they took out the game changers for the Bulldogs. Abby Alsma, 8 points, 3 of 10, couldn't get into a rhythm. And then Knutson, 8 points, 2 of 6 from the field, also couldn't get into a rhythm off the bench. And that's what Minnesota they did what they needed to take down Drake, and that was physically impose their will with both size and just defensive effort, and really take out the 2 stars Drake has to make them uncomfortable all day long. And Alsma is a great player. Knutson's a great player. Just couldn't get into that rhythm to keep this one close. Drake scores in single digits in 3 of the 4 quarters down the stretch. And it was just a really tough game for the Drake women, especially after we were so excited after they got that win, breaking that 8-game losing streak at Indiana State. And you saw how good this team can play as a unit. You knew it was going to be really difficult against Minnesota. This is a very talented team, a lot bigger team, but still you were hoping it'd feel a little more respectable than a 68-43 loss. But here's Allison Pohlman in her opening thoughts, and she hits on a lot of what we just talked about as well, right after the 68-43 loss to the Golden Gophers.
Positive things, but we're an evolving, growing Drake women's basketball team. The team that showed up in Terre Haute was was light and it was fun and we knocked down shots. And today, man, we just got stung by unfortunate situations of we had wide open shots, we just weren't able to knock them down. So I think a combination there of our inability to take advantage of really scoring the basketball, because I would say defensively, especially in the second half, we were really, really solid. We kept them off the glass. We did a nice job. But when you get those stops, we got to make sure that we're converting those into scores.
I do have some positives, though, with the Drake women. Again, this was a game you, as a coach, as a player, you go in expecting to win every game. For me, this was a game I wanted to see improvement. And on the offensive end, that was really tough to just watch. It was a tough game for Drake, and that was all because I don't think Drake was playing bad offensively. My first note down as a positive was I think the spacing for Drake's offense is drastically improving. I mean, you look at some of those early games against Iowa State, Iowa, this team looks out of sync. I mean, these last 2 games, they are passing the ball and moving without the ball at a really efficient clip. They had 12 assists on 13 made shots. As a coach, you love that. You love seeing that passes are leading to made shots. And the last thing that I wrote down is just this team adjusted with Minnesota. And now it's also played into Minnesota's favor. Minnesota is such a physically gifted team with their size and just their athletic ability that they want teams to have to play their style of physical, hard-nosed basketball. But what I loved about it is during that 8-game losing streak against Iowa State and against Iowa, if things got really physical, this team would kind of back off a little. You could see it. Against Minnesota, Brooklyn Daly, Ava Hawthorne, everyone was falling on the floor, going after loose balls. To be honest, swinging a few elbows. But I loved it. That showed fight, and that showed, you know what? We're not scared of this Big Ten team. We're done playing scared. I absolutely loved that. And I think that's really promising going into Valley play. Because, again, against a now 9-3 Minnesota squad that had played a top 7 team like Maryland as well as they did just a few weeks ago, I wasn't going in being like, Drake's going to win this game. They better win this game after a great performance against Indiana State. No, you wanted to see improvement. Sure, I wanted to see this game be a little closer, but it is kind of how I thought the game would play out, and I was really impressed with how well the offense did play and how efficient the offense was against a Minnesota squad that is so good on defense, where the turnovers, they had maybe a couple that were unforced. The turnovers were an issue, but a lot of it was just because, man, getting into those gaps and getting into the faces of the guards is what Minnesota's so good at. You're not going to face many teams as big and as strong defensively in the Valley like Drake did against Minnesota. So I thought the offense improved and continues to shine about their spacing and their passing. And again, even though it's what Minnesota wanted because it favors them, I did like how they didn't back down and they got physical right back into the face of the Golden Gophers. So it's a tough loss, but overall, you watch that game, you watch the game against Indiana State, and I still have full faith. This team is going to make some noise in the next few months in the Valley. Maybe they don't win the Valley, but they are going to compete in every game in conference. I think this is going to be the last double-digit blowout loss for this Drake team in a long time. So up next, Drake takes on a 6-6 UIC team on the road Monday, December 29th at 12 o'clock. All right, now let's jump in to a little bit of Iowa Hawkeye talk. I know we don't spend a lot of time on the Iowa Hawkeyes on this show, but we were fortunate enough to be able to go to the Casey Center on Saturday and see Iowa just absolutely handle and dominate Bucknell 94-39. And what, first and foremost, I mean this as a compliment, it was boring. It was like, boring is good in Division I basketball. You want to win by 55, which also reminds you, St. John's beat this Bucknell team, I think only by like 40. But this Iowa team, you want games like this. I know it's exciting to have those buzzer beaters and back and forth games. And the game like we saw in Ames where Iowa played down to the wire against a top 10 team like Iowa State. You feel really good about this team. That's what they needed to do against a bad Bucknell team. I mean it as a compliment. That boring is the best way to describe that Iowa game because they were just everything they wanted to do, they were able to do. And you had bench players coming in there and doing what they needed to do. I mean that. I can't stress that enough. Boring is good. If you're a Hawkeye fan, you love this boring game because that shows you, man, look at how dominant we are. Like, I know Bucknell isn't a great team. You're not going to face any Bucknells in the Big Ten or the NCAA tournament, but that's what you should be doing against a team like that. And so I think the expectations continue to just maybe not rise, but I think a lot of people started the year saying this should be an NCAA tournament team. I think now expectations are starting to be you win an NCAA tournament game. And it's not because you beat Bucknell, but it's just the style in which this team plays. And so the best way to describe the style, and it's changed a little. I think the best way this style has improved for McCollum is it's more fluid. McCollum's winning style is like someone working a 9-to-5, in my opinion. They put on the white shirt, the yellow tie, the gold tie. They go in, they do their job, they do it efficiently, productively, and then they get home. It's not always the flashiest. If you want to see, behind the back passes, alley-oops, every other play, maybe 35 three-pointers jacked up. Maybe you're watching a Calipari, Arkansas team or St. John's. But if you want to see winning and connected basketball, you watch Ben McCollum with a little bit of grit too. You watch Ben McCollum. And they have their share of behind the back and alley-oop passes or alley-oop plays as well. But they are more of a gritty, we're going to tire you out. We're going to physically demand so much out of your defense that you can't handle us. And then they go home after they win by 55. It is incredible to watch. Last year when McCollum and Sturts and all those guys were with Drake, that was a very solid winning style. The slower pace. They were efficient. They didn't turn over the ball a lot. I will say, if I'm a Hawkeye fan, I'm really liking what I'm seeing from McCollum because with Drake, at times it came off very stagnant, where it was slow-paced and it felt like, all right, we're just dribbling to dribble out this clock. We're not really moving with a purpose. I said that a lot, actually, on the shows last year covering McCollum and this Drake squad. Was, move with a purpose, cut with a purpose. I don't care that you're taking 20 seconds of the 30 on the shot clock, but be passing with a purpose, moving and cutting. We're starting to see that more effectively and on a game-to-game basis from this Iowa team where they look fluid. The ball barely touches the floor, which I love to watch. I grew up being a huge Popovich, Tim Duncan Spurs fan, where it just was beautiful to watch, like the ball movement and the players moving without the ball. The cliche of move without the ball and your teammates will find you. This Iowa team is running to perfection. And then you add on top the physically demanding defense that Ben McCollum is putting out there day in, day out. This is just a winning style that is set up for maybe not a deep run in March this year. I think a win in the NCAA tournament should be expected. That's my expectations for this team. But it sets up, in the next couple of years, this team could make a run in March. And so before we wrap up our Iowa conversation, do want to play you an audio clip of just Ben McCollum after the game. And he's here talking about just playing in Des Moines again. And also he mentioned something at the end that I want to touch on and how Coach McCollum gained some respect from me. So here's Coach Ben McCollum following the 94-39 victory.
It was fun. I was just really pleased with the crowd, the turnout, for a game, a 5 o'clock Saturday afternoon game, when there's a lot of other games on. I was pleased with that. We need to get those same people to Carver. I'm going to convince them to not sit down ever. And we're going to get some major cheering going on because it's fun to watch. It's fun to be a part of, and hopefully we can get Carver rocking like that too.
With that too.
So you hear Coach McCollum talk there at the end about how he wants to play in Des Moines in the Casey Center every year, at least one game. And he also mentioned towards the end about he wants those fans to come to Carver because he wants that place to be rocking, and he doesn't want to see a single person sit down. I respect that so much. This was my first year ever being at Carver Hawkeye for the Drake women's game, and it was a great atmosphere. I was actually very pleased with Carver Hawkeye. I'd heard so many bad things about the way it's set up. People didn't like it. They're fixing the student section. That's still in progress. But I was actually very impressed with it. I will say, though, for the last few years, watching the men's team is way different than watching the women's team. Women's team, Carver Hawkeye, is a different arena. The men's team, it did feel really quiet. And I love that McCollum, you knew he was saying this in his opening press conference, introductory press conference, that he wants that place rocking. He doesn't want people sitting down. And I posted it on Twitter. Another reason you should follow us at Media Row Pod. But so many Hawkeye fans loved it. And they were telling stories that I couldn't believe of people that would stand up to cheer for a 3-point shot and Hawkeye fans getting mad at them for standing up and saying things like, "This isn't Kinnick, sit down." Blows my mind. Blows my mind that there's fans like that. And I respect Ben McCollum as a brand new head coach for stepping into that role and shedding light on it and making sure that he's telling fans he knows that's kind of the stigma that is running around Carver Hawkeye Arena, and he's going to address it. So very impressed with Iowa. It was one of those games you're not going to find a lot of X's and O's. They did what they needed to do, but I am seeing that slower pace offense run more fluidly. And I continue to think Coach McCollum's style is setting up for, in a couple of years, a good run by this Hawkeye team. I want to finish today's show, though, by fixing the college football playoffs and talking about the Group of Five discussion, because it needs to be fixed. And I'm kind of stuck in the middle. Part of me is sitting there saying the Group of Five deserves to be in this. I love how in the NCAA tournament we have these Cinderellas and these amazing upsets. What makes sports so special. If we wanted to just know the two best teams, we'd let the computer decide. But no, we play these games for a reason. Sure, Group of Five may not upset a team this year, next year, but it's going to happen at some point in the future. We never thought a 16 seed would beat a 1. Now it's happened twice in the last 5 years. But another part of me is saying the Group of Five doesn't deserve to be in there. The games aren't competitive whatsoever. In the last 2 years, the Group of Five has been outscored 161-68. That's an average score of 41-17. They're not competitive. So this is my solution to it. I think the college football playoff has to expand to 24 teams and adapt that FCS model. And I know some people are going to counter-argue that with saying that's going to make the regular season and conference championship less meaningful. But in my opinion, I look at it like I do college basketball already, where if they did 24 teams, it'd be like Duke and Michigan State playing in November. I'm still locked in and excited about that game, knowing it probably won't have a lot of weight getting into March in the tournament. Ohio State, Texas at the start of the season. That game already, Ohio State could have lost that game, and you're still sitting there going, they have a clear path to the college football playoff. Because it's not a 4-team playoff. It's not where you have to go undefeated anymore. And sure, 24 teams, it does allow you a little more leeway. But I don't think it really will lessen the importance and the entertainment factor of these games as much as people worry about. And then same with conference championships. 12 teams, we're already to that point where Ohio State can lose in the conference championship and still get a bye in the college football playoff. So it's already to that point where it isn't as important as it used to be with a 4-team playoff. But I truly don't think it will ruin the regular season or the conference championships anymore. I think it really is the best option moving forward to provide that perfect balance where you allow the Group of Five to have their opportunity without stealing spots from teams that truly deserve and will compete in the first round and for a national title. That's my opinion on fixing the college football playoff bracket. I've seen a lot of people mention this. I've seen people put out what a 2014 bracket would look like this year, and I love it. I love it. One, it provides more home atmospheres for the playoffs. And I think that's what college football needs as well. And I think it would be like an NCAA tournament where we are going to have more chaos. And a group of five at some point is going to pull off an upset. And if we just kick them out already, it feels more wrong than keeping them in the tournament, in my opinion. So that will do it for a really busy show, a fun show. We had a lot to cover. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment. Give us your thoughts on the college football playoff. If you're a Drake fan, give us your thoughts on the Drake games this weekend. And if you're a Hawkeye fan, let me hear what you thought of the Coach McCollum audio. And we are going to have a fun holiday week. You guys have a safe and fun holiday break. Make sure to tune in for a special Tuesday edition of the Media Row podcast, as we will have Drake men's basketball head coach, Coach Henderson, on to kind of give us a month in review and his thoughts on the team and what they need to do to compete moving forward. And then we will finish up this week on Friday with our one-on-one with Coach Allison Pohlman, doing the same, but for the Drake women. We will see you all on Tuesday for our one-on-one with Coach Henderson on the Media Row podcast.